Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like this video. That way, you'll always stay connected to our stories and never miss the next adventure. Commander Halix's claws scraped against his command console as the impossible played out across his security feeds. The Predator cubs had blocked Central Corridor Delta, and nobody could move them. Nobody except the human. "Rewind that footage," he barked at his tactical officer. "Now." The playback showed what he'd just witnessed in real time. 15 apex cubs, each one capable of tearing through reinforced bulkheads with their juvenile claws, sitting in a perfect blockade formation. Station protocol classified them as Level 8 biological hazards. Untouchable, uncontrollable, answerable only to their Pack Alpha, who was currently 3 star systems away on a diplomatic mission. The medical emergency klaxon wailed through the command center. A patient in Medical Bay 3 had minutes left. The emergency response team was trapped on the wrong side of the corridor. The cubs weren't moving. Then she appeared on the feed. Human female, approximately 30 rotations old by their reckoning, wearing what his database identified as casual civilian attire, some kind of colorful tunic with strange symbols on it. She carried a thermal beverage container and walked with the unhurried gait of someone completely unaware she was approaching certain death. "Get her out of there!" Halix slammed his palm against the communication panel. "Security team to Central Corridor Delta, civilian in danger." On screen, the human stopped in front of the cubs. She smiled. "Excuse me, sweethearts." Her voice came through the audio feed, warm and gentle. "I need to get through, okay?" The cubs moved, not scattered, not fled. They stood in perfect military formation and parted down the middle, creating a precise pathway. Then they sat at attention, their predatory eyes tracking the human as she walked past them like it was the most natural thing in the galaxy. "Thank you, babies," she called over her shoulder. The cubs' tails wagged. Halix felt his secondary heart skip a beat. Around him, the entire command staff had gone silent. Someone dropped a data tablet, and the clatter echoed in the absolute quiet. "Did those cubs just—" his tactical officer whispered. "Did they just obey a human?" "That's impossible." Halix pulled up every relevant file his computer could access. Apex cubs don't respond to anyone outside their blood pack. It's biological, evolutionary. There are 15 scientific papers from the Galactic Behavioral Institute confirming that their pack imprinting is absolute. They literally cannot. Sir, they just did. On the feed, the human disappeared around the corner. The cubs immediately reformed their blockade, preventing the medical team from passing. "What is she?" his communications officer asked. "Is she some kind of apex hybrid? A genetic experiment?" Halix pulled up the human's station registry. Lisa. Occupation: visiting cultural exchange participant. Home planet: Earth. Profession listed as— he paused, parsing the unfamiliar me term, kindergarten teacher. "What's a kindergarten?" "Unknown. Computer, define kindergarten." The station AI's voice responded, "Kindergarten, human educational facility for offspring aged approximately 5 Earth rotations. Focus: basic social skills, cooperative play, and foundational learning concepts." The command center erupted into confused chatter. "She teaches their young? Humans let someone else teach their cubs? They have communal cub rearing? That's insane." Halix raised his hand for silence. "Get me the human, now. And someone get those cubs to move before our patient dies." "Sir, we've tried everything. Standard pack dispersal protocols, sonic deterrence, even brought in Nalex from security. He's half Apex himself. The cubs ignored all of it. They only moved for the human." On the security feed, the cubs had started playing with each other. Playing. Apex cubs didn't play. They trained, they fought for dominance, they established pack hierarchy through controlled aggression. But these cubs were tumbling over each other, making sounds that almost resembled laughter. "This is a Class Omega behavioral anomaly," Halleck said slowly. "Contact Fleet Command. Tell them we need Admiral Nalith here immediately." "Sir, the Admiral is overseeing fleet exercises in the Outer Rim. It'll take him 8 hours to—" "Then tell him it's worth the trip. Tell him someone just cracked Apex Pack psychology. And if this is weaponizable, every government in the galaxy will want to know how." His tactical officer paled. "You think this is deliberate? Some kind of human psychological warfare technique?" "I don't know what this is, but the Apex have dominated galactic warfare for 3,000 rotations because their soldiers are raised in isolation, hardened through survival training from birth, and completely loyal to their pack structure. If someone figured out how to bypass that imprinting—" Hallex let the implications hang in the air. The medical emergency klaxon intensified. The patient had 5 minutes left. "Sir, the human is coming back." Every eye in the command center fixed on the security feed. Lisa walked down the corridor from the opposite direction, now carrying what appeared to be a small bag of food items. The cubs immediately perked up, their attention laser-focused on her approach. She stopped in front of the blockade. The cubs had reformed their barrier, this time even tighter than before. "Guys," she said, and Hallex heard actual laughter in her voice. "I'm trying to walk here. Single file, please? Against the wall?" The cubs moved instantly. They formed a perfect single-file line along the corridor wall, each one sitting with their backs straight and their eyes forward, like soldiers awaiting inspection. Lisa walked past them, absently patting one on the head. The cub's entire body seemed to vibrate with pleasure. "Good babies," she murmured, and continued walking. The moment she rounded the corner, the cubs broke formation. But instead of reforming the blockade, they followed her. All 15 of them, trailing behind the human like she was their pack alpha. "Get me that human in my office right now," Halleck said, "and someone tell Medical Bay 3 that they have a clear corridor. Move!" His communications officer was already on it. "Medical team is through, sir. Patient is receiving treatment. They're asking what happened. They say the cubs just moved aside when they approached." "The cubs followed the human away," Hallex muttered. "They cleared the corridor because she left." He pulled up the human's file again, scanning through the details. Nothing remarkable. Standard biometrics for her species. No genetic modifications, no military training, no diplomatic credentials or psychological warfare expertise, just a teacher, someone who worked with young humans. "Sir, incoming communication from the Galactic Behavioral Institute. They've been monitoring our security feeds remotely. Standard protocol for any station hosting Apex cubs. They're demanding an explanation for what just occurred. Tell them I'll have one as soon as I understand it myself. And tell them to send their best expert on Apex psychology. We're going to need someone who can explain how a human just did something that violates 10,000 generations of evolutionary biology." Hallex watched the security feed as Lisa entered what appeared to be her assigned quarters. The cubs sat outside her door, waiting, their eyes fixed on the entrance like devoted sentinels. "Computer, pull up all data on human child-rearing practices." The AI compiled the information. Hallex read through it, his growing sense of unease intensifying with each line. Humans raised their offspring communally. They had designated caregivers, teachers, they called them, who managed multiple young simultaneously. Human cubs required constant attention, teaching, and what the database termed nurturing for the first 18 rotations of their lives. 18 rotations. Apex cubs were considered fully autonomous by rotation 3. They keep their young helpless for almost 2 decades, his tactical officer read over his shoulder. That's evolutionary suicide. How did they survive as a species? They didn't just survive, Halleck said quietly. They thrived. They're one of the most successful species on their planet. And apparently, they developed some kind of, he struggled for the word, caretaking instinct so powerful it can override another species' fundamental pack psychology. The medical emergency klaxon went silent. The patient was stable. The cubs were still sitting outside Lisa's door, and Halleck had the growing suspicion that everything the galaxy thought it knew about raising offspring was about to be questioned. Lisa emerged from her quarters 20 minutes later to find 15 predator cubs still sitting outside her door. "Oh," she blinked in surprise. "Are you guys still here?" The pert cubs' ears perked up simultaneously. Their tails began wagging in perfect synchronization. "Don't you have somewhere to be? Where are your parents?" From his command center, Halleck watched the exchange with growing disbelief. He'd dispatched 3 separate teams to attempt cub dispersal while the human had been in her quarters. All 3 had failed spectacularly. His own attempt, using standard Apex Pack Authority protocols that should have triggered instinctive submission responses, had resulted in the cubs simply staring at him. Not aggressive, not submissive, just indifferent. When Nalex, the station's half-Apex security officer and the closest thing to pack authority they had available, tried a traditional dominance display, the cubs had bared their teeth at him. Actual threat behavior. The security officer had backed away slowly, his pride visibly wounded. "Sir, Station AI has calculated the probability of non-Apex control over Apex cubs," his tactical officer reported. "And 0.0003%. The AI classifies this as a statistical impossibility and suggests we're experiencing a sensor malfunction. The sensors are fine. What we're experiencing is something our models never accounted for." On screen, Lisa was crouching down to the cubs' level, speaking to them in that same warm, gentle tone. The cubs were listening, their predatory focus entirely on her face. "I bet you're hungry, aren't you? Growing babies need lots of food." She pulled something from her bag, some kind of earth snack item, and broke it into pieces. The cubs took turns eating from her hand, with a delicacy that contradicted everything in their behavioral profiles. Apex cubs fought for food. They established dominance through resource competition. They didn't take turns. "She's teaching them to share," Halleck said aloud, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "She's teaching predator cubs to share food." His communications officer looked up from her console, confusion evident on her face. Why would anyone teach a predator to share? That goes against their survival instincts. "Maybe," Halleck said slowly, "humans don't think of them as predators. She keeps calling them babies." The medical emergency alarm sounded again. Different bay this time. The response team needed through Central Corridor Delta immediately. "Sir, the cubs are blocking the corridor again. They followed the human back to her original position." Halleck stood. "I'm going down there myself." "Sir, I need to see this in person. You have command." Central Corridor Delta was chaos when he arrived. The medical team stood at one end, emergency equipment in hand. The cubs sat in formation at the other, creating an impassable barrier. And in the middle, looking confused by all the fuss, stood the human. "Commander Hallex," he introduced himself, "I need you to ask the cubs to move. We have another medical emergency." Lisa looked at the cubs, then back at him. "Oh, of course. Guys, these people need to get through. Can you make some space?" The cubs immediately shifted, creating a wide pathway down the center of the corridor. The medical team rushed through. Nobody breathed until they were safely past. "How are you doing that?" Alex demanded. Lisa laughed, actually laughed, as if his question was absurd. "Doing what? I just asked them nicely." "You asked them nicely." "Well, yeah, they're just kids. You use your indoor voice and give clear expectations." She looked at him like he was missing something obvious. "They're really well behaved, actually. Sweet little things. They're apex predators. They're children." Lisa's expression shifted to something that looked like concern. "Are they bothering people? I can try to find their parents if their parents left them here. It's standard practice for apex child rearing. The cubs remain at the station while the adults attend to diplomatic duties." Lisa's face went through a rapid series of expressions. Confusion, then comprehension, then something that looked like horror. "You leave them alone? Just by themselves? For how long?" "The adults will return in approximately 30 station rotations." "That's a month!" Her voice rose. "These babies have been alone for a month?" "They're not helpless. Apex cubs are highly capable. They're scared and lonely." Lisa looked at the cubs, and her expression softened. "Oh, you poor babies. No wonder you're blocking corridors and causing trouble. You don't have anyone taking care of you." Hallex felt his understanding of the situation shift uncomfortably. "They don't require caretaking. They're biologically independent." "Nobody's biologically independent at this age. They need supervision, structure, enrichment activities." She stopped herself. "Sorry, I'm in teacher mode. But seriously, who's feeding them? Who's making sure they're safe? Who's teaching them how to interact with others? They manage themselves. It's instinctive." Lisa stared at him for a long moment. Then she pulled out her personal data device and started typing rapidly. "What are you doing?" "Messaging my supervisor. If nobody's taking care of these kids, I'm volunteering. This is literally my job back home. Your job is to care for human offspring. My job is to care for kids." Species seems like a minor detail at this point. She looked back at the cubs, and they were watching her with rapt attention. "They're babies. They need someone." Hallex's communicator buzzed. His tactical officer's voice came through urgently. "Sir, we have a situation developing. The cubs in sections 3 and 8. There are 42 additional cubs stationed in those areas. They're all converging on your location." "What? Why?" "Unknown, sir. They just started moving, all heading toward Central Corridor Delta." Hallex looked at Lisa, who was now sitting on the floor with the original 15 cubs gathered around her. She'd pulled out what appeared to be a children's book from her bag and was showing them the pictures. And then the little bear said, "Someone's been eating my porridge," she read, doing different voices for each character. The cubs were mesmerized. "Sir, the incoming cubs are moving in organized formations. They're not running or showing aggression. They're just walking, like they're going somewhere they're supposed to be." A chill ran down Hallex's spine. They're going to her. They're all going to the human. Within 10 minutes, 58 apex cubs filled Central Corridor Delta. They sat in neat rows, all facing Lisa, all watching as she read her children's book. She didn't seem fazed by the growing crowd. "Okay, this is a bigger story time than I expected," she said with a laugh. "But we can make it work. Everyone squeeze in so we can all see the pictures." The cubs adjusted their positions without prompting, creating tighter formations that allowed everyone a clear view. Alex's communicator wouldn't stop buzzing. Reports flooded in from across the station. Every apex cub, every single one, had abandoned their assigned areas and gathered around the human. "Sir, Fleet Admiral Nalith is demanding an immediate briefing. He's en route, but wants a preliminary report on the situation." Alex looked at the scene before him. A human sitting on the floor of his station, surrounded by nearly 60 apex predator cubs, reading them a story about talking bears. The cubs were silent, attentive, and absolutely calm. "Tell the Admiral," Alex said slowly, "that we have confirmed Class Omega behavioral anomaly. An unarmed human civilian has achieved complete pack dominance over 58 apex cubs through methods we don't understand. She did it by asking nicely and reading them a story. Sir, he's not going to believe. Send him the live feed, and tell him to bring the best xenopsychologist he can find, because everything we thought we knew about apex pack behavior just became obsolete." On the floor, Lisa turned the page. The cubs leaned forward in unison, eager to see what happened next, and Alex realized with absolute certainty that the galaxy was about to discover something terrifying about humans. They'd evolved to manage the most dangerous creatures in existence, their own young. Dr. Philnas arrived on station 8 hours later, his credentials from the Galactic Apex Behavioral Institute preceding him like a shield. He was the foremost expert on apex psychology in known space, author of 18 definitive texts on predator pack dynamics, and consultant to 4 different governments on military applications of apex behavioral science. He took one look at the security footage and declared it a hoax. "Neurologically impossible," he stated flatly, standing in Alex's command center. "The apex pack bond is hardwired into their neural architecture. It forms during the first 60 days of life and cannot be altered, redirected, or replicated by any external stimulus. What you're showing me violates everything we know about their brain chemistry." "Then come see it in person," Alex said, "because it's still happening." They found Lisa in what had been designated as Recreation Area 9. She'd somehow convinced station operations to convert it into what she called a temporary classroom space. The 58 cubs were arranged in small groups throughout the room, and they were engaged in what Alex could only describe as organized activities. Some were doing what appeared to be artwork with colorful marking implements. Others were building structures with basic geometric blocks. A small group was playing with soft spherical objects, tossing them back and forth in what looked suspiciously like a cooperative game. Lisa moved between the groups, offering encouragement and gentle corrections. "Remember, we share the supplies. There's enough for everyone. Nice job working together on that tower. How high do you think you can make it? Gentle touches with your friends. We keep our claws retracted during playtime." Dr. Philnas stood frozen in the doorway. His scanning equipment hung limply in his hands. "They're playing," he whispered. "Apex cubs don't play. They engage in dominance exercises and combat simulation, but they don't. They're sharing. That cub just gave another cub a toy without establishing hierarchical priority first." Alex watched as one of the larger cubs noticed a smaller one struggling to reach a high shelf. The larger cub moved over and lifted the smaller one up without any apparent expectation of submission or reward. "They're helping each other," Alex said. "She's been working with them for 6 hours, and they're already showing cooperative behaviors that aren't in their species profile." "Impossible." Dr. Philnas activated his neural scanner and began running readings on the nearest cubs. "I need to examine their brain patterns. if their pack bonds have been somehow chemically altered. One of the cubs growled at him, low and warning. Lisa looked up from where she was helping another group. "Hey, sweetie, we don't growl at visitors. Dr. Philnus is here to help." The cub immediately stopped growling, but didn't take its eyes off the doctor. "They're protecting this space," Dr. Philnus said, his voice shaking slightly. "They've designated this room as pack territory, and the human as pack hierarchy. This is exactly what adult apex warriors do when defending their command structure. Can you scan them or not? Let me ask first." Dr. Philnus approached slowly, keeping his body language neutral. "Young one, I need to take some readings. It won't hurt. May I?" The cub looked at Lisa. She nodded encouragingly. "It's okay, baby. The doctor just wants to make sure you're healthy." The cub allowed the scan. Dr. Philnus's hands trembled as he read the results. Their neural patterns they're normal. Completely, absolutely normal for their developmental stage. The pack bonding centers are functioning exactly as they should be. Then how? They've bonded to her. Dr. Philnus looked at Lisa with something approaching awe or fear. Alex couldn't tell which. Their pack bonds are redirected. Not damaged, not altered. Redirected. She triggered their pack imprinting mechanism. But she's not Apex. She's not even the right species. I know. The doctor ran the scan again, as if hoping for different results. This shouldn't be neurologically possible. The imprinting mechanism requires specific pheromonal signatures, behavioral patterns, and physiological markers that are species-specific. She shouldn't be able to activate it at all, much less override existing pack structures. Lisa had moved to a corner where a small cub sat alone, away from the others. She crouched down beside it. "Hey there, little one. You feeling left out?" The cub made a small, uncertain sound. "I know everyone else seems like they have friends already. But you know what? You can join any group you want. See those cubs over there building with blocks? They'd love your help. Or the art table. There's tons of space there." The small cub didn't move. Lisa sat down beside it. "Or we can just sit here together for a while. Sometimes you need quiet time. And that's okay, too." The cub leaned against her. She put her arm around it gently. "This is nurturing behavior," Dr. Philnus said quietly. "She's providing comfort to a distressed juvenile. Apex adults don't do that. Cubs who show weakness are ignored until they learn to manage their own emotional states. It's part of their hardening process. She's not ignoring it. No, she's doing the opposite. And look at the other cubs." Several of the nearby cubs had noticed the interaction. They approached slowly, then settled around Lisa and the small cub, creating a protective circle. "They're learning empathy," Dr. Philnus said. "Empathy, from a human. I need to sit down." Alex guided the doctor to a bench outside the recreation area. Through the transparent walls, they could watch Lisa working with the cubs. "Explain to me how this is happening," Alex demanded. "In terms I can understand." Dr. Philnus took a moment to compose himself. "Apex cubs imprint on strength and dominance. That's what we've always believed. But what if we were wrong? What if they imprint on something else entirely? And we just never noticed, because apex adults only display strength and dominance. What else would they imprint on? Care, attention, safety." Dr. Philnus gestured toward Lisa. "She's not dominating them. She's nurturing them. And they're responding because that's what they actually need at this developmental stage. We've spent thousands of rotations forcing apex cubs to mature through isolation and competition, assuming that was their natural state. But what if it wasn't? What if we've been raising them wrong this entire time? Alex felt something cold settle in his chest. You're saying the entire apex species has been traumatizing their own offspring for their entire history? I'm saying humans evolved to raise helpless young. Really helpless young. Their offspring can't even walk for the first rotation of their lives, can't feed themselves for even longer. Humans had to develop powerful caretaking instincts just to keep their species alive. And those instincts are so strong they can override another species' evolutionary programming. Inside the recreation area, Lisa was organizing the cubs into what she called circle time. They sat in a perfect circle around her, attention focused, bodies relaxed. Now, who wants to tell me about their day? What was your favorite thing we did? One cub made a chittering sound. Building with blocks? That was fun, wasn't it? You made such a tall tower. Another cub vocalized, You liked the art best? I loved your drawing. Such pretty colors. She's teaching them to communicate, Dr. Filnas said, to express preferences, to share experiences. These are social bonding behaviors that apex adults struggle with because they never learned them as cubs. Alex's communicator buzzed. Sir, Fleet Admiral Nalith has arrived. He's demanding an immediate briefing. Send him to Recreation Area 9. He needs to see this himself. Admiral Nalith was a decorated warrior with 40 rotations of command experience. He'd led fleets through 3 major conflicts and negotiated peace treaties with a dozen hostile species. Nothing in the galaxy surprised him anymore, until he saw the cubs playing with building blocks. What am I looking at, Commander? A complete paradigm collapse, sir. The human has achieved full pack integration with 58 apex cubs using methods that shouldn't work. The Admiral watched as Lisa demonstrated something she called taking turns. The cubs were passing a toy between them in a circle, each one holding it briefly before passing it to the next. They're not fighting for it, the Admiral said slowly. They're cooperating. Yes, sir. How long has this been happening? 8 hours since full integration. The initial contact was approximately 18 hours ago. Admiral Nal-Ith walked slowly around the perimeter of the recreation area, his experienced eyes taking in every detail. The cubs' body language, their spatial arrangements, their interactions with each other and with the human. They've formed a pack structure with her at the center, not through dominance, through trust. That's Dr. Filnas's assessment as well, sir. The Admiral stopped walking. He stood still for a long moment, watching as Lisa helped a cub tie what she called a friendship bracelet onto another cub's wrist. Commander, what do you know about human child-rearing practices? Basic overview from their database, communal raising, extended dependency period, designated caregivers. They teach their young to read by age 5, basic mathematics. By age 6, complex social skills throughout. They spend 18 rotations preparing their offspring for independence, and they do it through patience, repetition, and emotional support. Every human adult has these skills at some level. It's not military training. It's not psychological warfare. It's just how they raise their children. Sir, I'm not sure I understand the implications. The implications, Commander, are that humans have weaponized kindness without even knowing it's a weapon. That woman in there, she's using the same skills she'd use on human 5-rotation-olds, and she's dismantling thousands of rotations of apex military doctrine without even trying. Inside the recreation area, one of the cubs knocked over another cub's block tower accidentally. The knocked-over tower scattered pieces everywhere. Hallex tensed, expecting the dominance fight that should follow. Instead, the cub who caused the accident made a distressed sound. The other cub patted it reassuringly. Then they both started rebuilding the tower together, making it even bigger than before. They apologized, Dr. Filna said, his voice barely audible, and forgave. Apex cubs don't have words for those concepts. They do now, Admiral Nalith said quietly. Doctor, I need you to document everything you're seeing. Full analysis. I have to report this to the Galactic Council, and they're not going to believe it without comprehensive evidence. Sir, with respect, I'm not sure I believe it, and I'm watching it happen. The Admiral's communicator chimed. He listened for a moment, then his expression shifted to something Hallex had never seen on the veteran commander's face before. Fear. Commander, we have a situation. The Apex diplomatic delegation has returned early. They're demanding immediate access to their cubs, and they're bringing their full military escort. The Apex delegation filled the corridor outside Recreation Area 9 with barely contained hostility. Pack leader Daxil stood at the front, flanked by 8 warriors in full ceremonial armor. Their size alone was intimidating. Each stood twice as tall as Hallex, their muscular frames designed for warfare. Where are our cubs? Daxil's voice was a low growl. We received reports of pack interference. Unacceptable. Admiral Nalith stepped forward, his posture carefully neutral. Pack leader, your cubs are safe. However, before you enter, you should know that their behavioral patterns have undergone significant changes. Changes? Daxil's eyes narrowed. Explain. They've bonded with a human caretaker. She's been providing them with a human. The pack leader's roar echoed through the corridor. You allowed an alien to interfere with our cubs? To corrupt their pack structure? Nobody allowed anything. It happened naturally, and I strongly suggest you observe before making judgments. Daxil shoved past the Admiral, his warriors following. They entered the recreation area like an invasion force. The cubs looked up from their activities. For a moment, everything froze. Then Lisa stood, brushing off her clothes. Oh, you must be the parents. Hi, I'm Lisa. Your kids are wonderful. Daxil stared at the scene before him. His cubs weren't rushing to him in traditional greeting. They weren't establishing hierarchy or demonstrating dominance behaviors. They were sitting in groups, playing with toys, creating artwork. One small cub approached him shyly, holding up a drawing. Look what I made! The pack leader looked down at the colorful picture. His expression shifted through confusion, disbelief, and something that might have been pain. You made art? Lisa showed us how. And we made friendship bracelets, too. See? The cub held up its wrist, displaying a woven band of colored strings. Another cub approached, this one carrying a structure built from blocks. We worked together on this, all of us. Nobody fought. Daxil's voice came out strained. You cooperated? Without establishing dominance order? Lisa says we're all friends. Friends help each other. The pack leader looked at Lisa. What have you done to them? I just spent time with them, Lisa said, her voice gentle but firm. They were alone and scared, so I did what I'd do with any kids who needed someone. I gave them attention, structure, and kindness. They are Apex. They don't need kindness. They need strength. They're children. They need both. Lisa crossed her arms, and, respectfully, they were blocking corridors, causing problems, and clearly unhappy before. Now look at them. They're calm, cooperative, and learning social skills that'll help them their entire lives. One of the warriors spoke up. This is corruption of pack values. Our cubs are raised through challenge and competition. It makes them strong. It makes them lonely, Lisa said quietly. I've been a teacher for 10 rotations. I know what lonely kids look like. Your cubs were desperate for connection. Daxel watched as more of his cubs approached, each wanting to show him something they'd created or learned. Their body language was different, more open, less guarded. We were raised the traditional way, he said slowly, as were our ancestors before us. It has made us the most formidable warriors in the galaxy. Maybe, Lisa acknowledged. But at what cost? Don't you want your kids to be happy? The question seemed to break something in the pack leader. He looked at his cubs, really looked at them, and saw what everyone else had been seeing. They weren't the hardened, aggressive juveniles he'd left behind. They were children being allowed to act like children. Dr. Philnus stepped forward. Pack leader Daxil, I've been studying the cubs for several hours. Their neural development is enhanced compared to traditional raising patterns. They're forming complex social connections and emotional intelligence that typically takes rotations longer to develop. You're saying this human's methods are better than ours? I'm saying your cubs are thriving, and as a scientist, I can't ignore that data. Admiral Nalith moved to stand beside Lisa. Pack leader, we're not suggesting you abandon your culture, but perhaps there's room for adaptation. The galaxy is changing. Species are cooperating more than ever before. Cubs raised with these social skills might be exactly what your people need for the future. Daxil was silent for a long moment. Around him, his warriors watched the cubs with expressions that ranged from confusion to something that looked like longing. Finally, the pack leader knelt down, bringing himself to eye level with the nearest cub. Show me what you learned. The cub's entire body lit up with excitement. Okay, so first, Lisa taught us about sharing. That means everyone gets a turn, and nobody has to fight for it. As the cub explained, more gathered around, eager to demonstrate their new skills. Lisa stepped back, letting the cubs take the lead. Admiral Nalith leaned close to Hallex. Watch. This is the moment everything changes. One of the cubs handed Daxil a drawing. I made this for you. Lisa says, when you care about someone, you make things for them. The pack leader took the picture with trembling hands. It showed two figures, one large, one small, standing together. This is us? It's you and me. You're my pack. Lisa says pack means family, and family means nobody gets left behind. Daxil's voice was rough. Where did you learn that? From a movie Lisa showed us. It's about a human family. They had problems, but they stayed together because they loved each other. The pack leader looked at Lisa. You taught them love? I taught them that love and strength aren't opposites, Lisa said. They can be both fierce and kind, just like you can. For the first time in documented history, an apex pack leader embraced his cub not in dominance, but in affection. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 3 days later. Admiral Nalith stood before representatives from 68 species, presenting what he'd witnessed with clinical precision. The implications extend far beyond one species, he concluded. If human caretaking methods can produce these results with apex cubs, we must question how many other species have been raising their offspring suboptimally. The chamber erupted in debate. The representative from the Hive Collective was particularly vocal. You're suggesting we restructure child-rearing practices that have existed for millennia based on one human's interaction with predator cubs? I'm suggesting we consider the evidence, Nalith replied calmly. Dr. Philnus, please present your findings. The doctor's report was comprehensive. Neural scans showing enhanced development. behavioral analyses demonstrating advanced social skills, psychological evaluations indicating improved emotional regulation. The data was irrefutable. The cubs are healthier by every measurable metric, Dr. Philnas Chanpuyi concluded. And the human used no special technology, no genetic modification, no pharmaceutical intervention. She simply treated them with patience and kindness. Pack leader Daxil rose to address the council. I speak as one who has lived the traditional way. My cubs are stronger for what they learned from the human. Not weaker, stronger. They can still fight, still defend, still lead. But now they can also cooperate, communicate, and connect. These skills will make them better warriors and better leaders. The council chamber fell silent. I am proposing, Daxil continued, his voice steady, that the Apex formally request human advisors to help reform our child-rearing protocols. We have been at war with ourselves for too long, calling it tradition. The vote passed unanimously. Back on the station, Lisa was trying to explain to her supervisor why she'd accidentally triggered a galactic social revolution. I just helped some kids? She sat in Halix's office, looking overwhelmed. I didn't think it was a big deal. It's the biggest deal in recent galactic history, Halix said, though his tone was kind. 6 species have already requested human consultants for their educational systems. The Galactic Behavioral Institute is restructuring their entire curriculum. You've fundamentally altered how advanced civilizations think about childhood. Lisa blinked. I gave them snacks and read them stories. You gave them something they didn't know they needed, Admiral Nalith said from where he leaned against the wall. And you did it so naturally that it exposed how unnatural our methods had become. A soft chittering came from outside the office. The cubs had arrived for what Lisa now called afternoon activities. She'd established a daily schedule that included learning time, playtime, and quiet time. The cubs had adapted to it enthusiastically. Speaking of which, I should get going. We're making art projects today, and I promised them we'd do something with glitter. Glitter? Halix asked warily. It's basically sparkly chaos in tiny pieces. The kids love it. Lisa stood, gathering her supplies. Oh, and pack leader Daxil said he wants to join us today. Something about learning the methods firsthand? He's staying on station for the next month, Nalith confirmed, along with 6 other Apex adults. They want to understand what you're doing so they can implement it across their worlds. Lisa's expression shifted to something determined. Then I'd better make sure I explain it properly. This isn't just about being nice. It's about understanding that young minds need support to develop properly. Firm boundaries with gentle guidance, high expectations with emotional safety, structure with flexibility. We're recording everything, Dr. Philnas said, appearing in the doorway. Your methods are being compiled into training modules for the entire galaxy. No pressure or anything? Lisa said with a nervous laugh. What if I mess up? Then you'll model how to handle mistakes with grace, Halith replied, which is also something the cubs need to see. Lisa headed to the recreation area, the cubs falling into step around her like an honor guard. Halix and the Admiral watched through the transparent walls as she organized the cubs into work groups, distributing supplies, explaining the activity with animated gestures. She has no idea how extraordinary she is, Nalith observed. Most humans don't, Halix said. That's what makes them dangerous. They do impossible things and think it's ordinary. Inside the recreation area, Daxil sat among the cubs, looking uncomfortable but determined. Lisa showed him how to hold a paintbrush, how to encourage rather than command. how to praise effort rather than just results. It feels unnatural, the pack leader admitted. It probably felt unnatural for humans too, at first, Lisa said, thousands of generations ago. But they kept doing it because it worked, because their babies needed it, and eventually it became instinct. She handed him a cub's drawing. "Your daughter made this for you. She's been working on it all morning." Daxel looked at the picture, a family of apex figures all holding hands. "We don't have hand-holding in our culture." "You do now," Lisa said gently. "Culture changes. That's not weakness. That's evolution." The pack leader studied the drawing for a long moment. Then he pulled his daughter close, and though the gesture was still awkward, it was genuine. Admiral Nelith turned away from the window. "Commander, how long until we can replicate this across other species?" "Dr. Philness estimates 6 months for initial training programs, longer for cultural integration." "Make it happen. And Hallex?" The Admiral's expression was thoughtful. "What Lisa said about culture evolving, that applies to all of us. The galaxy's been doing things one way for so long, we forgot to question whether it was the right way." Through the window, Lisa's laughter rang out as a cub accidentally spilled glitter everywhere. Instead of punishment, she turned it into an impromptu lesson about cleaning up mistakes together. "Humans weaponized kindness," Hallex said quietly, "and we never saw it coming because we didn't think kindness was a weapon." "It's not a weapon," Nalith corrected. "It's something much more powerful. It's a foundation. Everything else builds from there." Lisa was already moving on to her next task, completely unaware that she'd just changed the course of galactic history. She had cubs to teach, snacks to distribute, and art projects to finish. Just another day at work. The cubs formed a perfect line to wash their hands, chattering excitedly about their creations. They moved like soldiers following orders, but the orders were given with love. And that made all the difference.